Chris mentioned the strikes are going on. And hopefully through this process from both the sides of the writers, the studios, the actors, there are going to be lessons to be learned for everybody involved. But could one of those lessons be, I don't know, maybe some preemptive action on the side of the studios to say maybe put into actors or writers contracts that says, hey, if you're going to start working on a movie, if a strike happens, you got to finish the movie before you join your fellow compatriots on strike. Could there be some merit to that? And that is the topic of the next hotline question. Check it out.
Hey, John Campea crew. This is Mark from St. Louis, and my question is about the ongoing strike. Whenever, if ever, there's a deal made, could you see studios putting into new contracts that writers and actors must finish their current movie that they're in, even if their deadline or strike time happens again? Studios are losing tons of money now, and then I feel like they believe that could not necessarily stop all of Hollywood. And do you think the actors' unions and writers' unions will either be 100% on the same page, whether some actors and writers work on certain projects, whether they have waivers or not? Thank you.
All right, Mark from St. Louis, thanks a lot for calling that in. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Vessi. Now, like me, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of Vessi, the shoe that claims to be incredibly comfortable and waterproof on top of that. Well, these claims are really interesting to me because as a Canadian who walked around in a lot of snow, and as somebody who likes to go camping and hiking with his wife on the weekends, there's nothing more uncomfortable and horrible than walking around in wet feet. So after receiving my first pair of Vessis and noticing how incredibly good looking the shoes are and how mind-boggling comfortable and flexible they are, the first thing I did was I took them into the backyard to put it to the supreme waterproof test and dipped my feet in my pool. Guys, my feet were bone dry, and like 20 seconds after having them in the pool and I touched them, the shoes themselves were also bone dry. Guys, seriously, these shoes are stupidly comfortable, they look great, and they absolutely lived up to the claim of being waterproof and keeping my feet dry. I absolutely love my Vessi shoes. So guys, if you want shoes that are good looking, are ridiculously comfortable, and on top of all that waterproof, you need to head to vessi.com/Campea and get yourselves a pair today. Go to vessi.com/Campea and get shoes for your best summer yet. And listen, I'm going to tell you right now, hot scoop, the studios would love this in their deals. Oh God, yes, they would love. Imagine this, the writers and directors, actors go on strike, but guess what? Deadpool 3 keeps going on production. They keep making that movie. All the TV shows keep running. All the scripts keep getting written, all that kind of stuff. 1,000% that the studios would love this deal because it would mean that you could have a strike and it would have absolutely no consequences whatsoever from the studios. It's like, oh, you're going on strike? Cool. We're going to keep making this movie over here. 100% they would love it. Just like, let's flip the coin on this. This would be the equivalent of writers and actors wanting to put into the contracts, okay, listen now, studios. If we ever decide to go on strike again, you got to keep paying us. But you're not going to be working, you're going to be on strike. Doesn't matter. You got to keep paying us. You got to keep sending the paychecks even if we're on strike, right? That's the opposite equivalent of that. Of course, the actors and the writers would love that deal. Hell, I'd go on strike again tomorrow if I would keep getting my paycheck and I could just go on strike. And that's essentially what this would be for the studios. It would be a consequence-free. Now, look, let's bring up a four-shot here, Jonathan, of all four of us here. Here's the real problem, though, with what you're proposing. Again, the studios would love it. But what it means is the pain timer would not be starting at the same time. What do you mean by this? Well, what I mean is the moment a strike happens, pain starts. Pain for the studios, pain for the actors, pain for the writers. It's a pain. Nobody likes this. There's not a single actor in the world that wants to strike. There's not a single studio in the world that wants to strike. A pain timer starts going off. And it almost becomes a war of attrition. Who can handle the pain the longest? So let's say you had a deal where The studios wrote it into contracts that actors and writers, if a strike happens, they have to keep working on the projects that they're working on until those projects are complete. What that means is that the pain timer would start on the actors and writers before the pain timer would start on the studios. Let's say that Ray and Jonathan had a little bit of a debate about which one of them was more manly, had a higher pain threshold.
Every fucking day.
Every day. And Chris says, all right, I know how to settle this. I'm going to punch both of you in the balls until one of you cries stop. All right? So Chris breaks out her MMA gloves.
I have no balls.
Didn't even start yet, so.
Chris breaks out her MMA gloves and positions herself right in the middle. The bell goes off and boom, boom, boom. There they go. She starts hammering away, punishing, Jonathan and Ray. And then at some point, one of them cries uncle. Well, let's say Jonathan says, I got an idea. I accept these terms, but you have to start punching Ray first and then start punching me 30 seconds later. The pain timer is different. Of course, Jonathan's going to win that because he's just standing there not getting punched in the balls while Ray is getting punched in the balls. Vomiting, crying, calling out the name of his
I would never, Chef. I would never.
You guys don't believe in
Chef
my ball
pleasure's
power.
no longer.
I've seen your pillow.
But that's essentially it. The studios, if they had that in the deals, would be in a position where we'd be like, all right, go ahead, start punching us in the balls. Just start with them and don't get around to hitting us in the balls for about 6 more months. Because basically that would delay it for them. That would delay the consequences of a strike on the studios for like 2, 3, 5, 6 months. Meanwhile, the writers and the actors, a lot of them are unemployed, not getting their paychecks. It would completely unbalance things. So while this would be a magnificent deal for the studios, it would defeat the purpose of going on strike in the first place. So there is no way. Now, Chris, you're going to be able to answer this better than I can. I'm going to say, as an outsider, not a member of SAG like you are, I'm going to say there's no way in hell SAG would ever accept terms like that. Of course they wouldn't. It would never happen. Chris, what do you think about the basic premise of the question? But also, do you think there could be a world where the spirit of the question, like, could some kind of accommodations be made on either side? I don't know how, to be honest, but could some kind of accommodation be made on either side that if, heaven forbid, the next strike happens, that it would somehow soften it a little for both sides? I can't think of a way that it would, but what do you think?
I mean, in a way, there kind of is that softening already of just kind of like me on this show, right? I'm a SAG member, but this is a non-union affiliation show. Not non-union, but no affiliation, right? And because I have a contract with you, I'm still allowed to come on here and talk about movies and TV and all kinds of things without doing terrible damage to my career.
Right.
But when it comes to that loophole, I like this question. I think it's something that's really smart because, as you know, with legal contracts, if there can be a loophole, someone's going to try to find it and exploit it and pop it in there so that you've got the other person over the coals. I do not see SAG-AFTRA allowing that to happen because that is our bargaining power, right? That's our collective power right now. I actually sat in this week on a meeting talking about the potential video game strike.
Wow.
And that was another one of talking about, hey, our power is really in not showing up, not going to work. That's what we have to do. Because a lot of people on there were talking about, hey, I just auditioned for this game. I'm, pinned to work for Activision. If this strike authorization goes through and we do vote to strike, obviously I'll walk. But like, what do I do if I'm under contract? What happens there? And it's a very big issue for people because then for us, it puts us at risk of, hey, am I ruining my relationship with this casting director, with this company? Are they always going to say, hey, there was that time where, Chris decided to walk from a contract, so I'm never going to hire her again. It really puts us at risk too, but it's something that we have to do because it really is our only bargaining chip is, well, I'm not going to let you exploit me, is really what it comes down to. Jessica Chastain had this wonderful discussion at the Venice Film Festival saying how so many people in this industry, whether it's actors, whether it's crew members, whether it's writers, we're constantly told that we should just be grateful that we get to be here. And that kind of attitude just leads to workplace abuse and people getting taken advantage of. And so we really do have to put our foot down on some of these things and say, no, we can't accept this, even though this is the best job in the world, even though we love this so much, we can't work for barely any money. And the only way that we get that message across is by stop working.
All right. There. So yeah, no, again, studios would love what you're suggesting, but it would make no sense for the writers or the actors, unfortunately. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.